Good morning, everybody, and welcome to IBD Live. I'm Chris Gessel, head of the content department here at Investors Business Daily. And with me today are all my good friends, Mike Webster, head market strategist at IBD, David Chung, fresh back from España.
We missed him.
Muchas
Not the same.
gracias. Thank you. Good morning.
Muchas gracias.
No
Muchas
hat
gracias.
today? Your first day
Mis
back?
amigos.
Well, I wanted to keep that elf's hat behind me just as a nice reminder of how much fun we had in Christmas. I'm kind of getting back in the saddle, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then Ken Shreve, our one of our senior market writers and leaderboard contributor. And Ken's going to be doing the news today because Ed decided to go golfing, of all things.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Lucky him.
And then behind me, Justin Nielsen, who's going to be answering questions. So we'll get to as many on the air, but he'll be knocking them out as well. So if you're new to IBD Live, we analyze the pre-market action and then the first hour of trading, and we're looking for actionable trading ideas and kind of show you how we go about analyzing the market and plotting our trading strategy for the rest of the day. So, and as we were talking about questions, IBD Live is interactive. So click on the Q&A tab down there and submit your question, and we'll get to a lot of them on air. Justin will knock out others. And then a new thing that we're doing, we started it about a week ago or so, is that we'll take all the answered questions and post them with the email wrap-up that then takes you to not only the archive version of the show, but also a document with all the questions, as well as our ready list and our universe list. So, and someone was asking yesterday about the ready list and how that works. And so, you know, once we decide, we pick stocks over the weekend to go in our watch list, and then we go through that watch list and then look at the ones that are very close to buy points, and those, and with the idea that if they move, we are ready to buy.
Yep.
In many cases. So that's the explanation there. You can get all those links on the. And
it's not necessarily a best of list. It's just something that's in position to take action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. So before we get into the details of today and all the things that have been happening, let me remind everyone that IBD Live is for educational and informational purposes only. We talk about a lot of stocks, but they are not buy or sell recommendations. Please do your own research before making any trades. So with that, hey guys, anything happened yesterday after the close?
Yeah, I wonder. Was there any news after?
Yeah.
I was talking to Arusha about, well, I'm going to do a podcast with them today, and we're like going over it for like an hour, like what we're going to do. I come back to my desk and Ed is sitting here frantically typing something out, and then I look at my screen and I see the cues just like falling like a rock, and he told me what happened. Man, it was pretty intense.
Yeah, I know. I was actually, as I often do, people familiar with Los Angeles, we're on the west side, I live in the valley, and so driving up the Sepulveda Pass, I'll often stop and pull off at a place called Mountain Gate, which is houses and a golf course up in the hill. And I can be on the 405 and 5 minutes later hiking in silence and looking at the ocean.
Serious?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
and
man.
So I'm on my.
I want to be you in my next life. That's awesome.
Walking meditation is great.
You can join me anytime.
Have you done that with Ken too? Ken is an avid hiker.
Ken and I have gone on some hikes.
Yeah.
Now that Ken's got a girlfriend, we don't hike very much.
Oh, jeez, thanks a lot.
Details. Juicy details.
My point in all this, so I'm out there decompressing from the day and enjoying the view, and then I get the alert from Ed about the rocket attacks and everything, and started looking at, oh my gosh, this one's going to hurt. But it was crazy that I think part, so I'm sure everyone knows, so Iran responded to the Soleimani killing, and they launched some cruise missiles.
Like 15? Was that
Yeah,
the
more
final
than
number?
a dozen that I saw at an air base in Iraq, but these were, launched from Iran, and so at one point, the lowest I saw, the Qs were down 2%. So I mean, it was going to be a terrible day, and then it started coming back, and I think perhaps because President Trump said all is well, wasn't being inflammatory, and kind of held it down. And
well, luckily since no one got hurt, that I think it's like
right,
because if someone got hurt, then then all of a sudden based on what he said, he was going to go after the 52 targets. Luckily, he's backed away from the going after cultural sites, which that could have really inflamed things a lot. So it seems like both sides are kind of, Iran had to do something to save face. They could not. And so as far as things go right now, it's mellow, and hopefully it's mellow so people don't die.
Absolutely. So the futures that were plunging yesterday evening are now essentially flat, maybe up a little bit actually. Yeah, the Nasdaq's flat, S&P is up 0.1%. So with all that, I guess quickly, Dave, back from Spain, what stocks are you looking at today?
Well, I certainly wasn't looking at Spanish stocks, even though I was vacationing there a little bit, and glad to be back though, and was watching the market from afar. It seemed like it was really nice to see some new names added to leaderboard. We might get a chance to talk about that, but I just want to put two on everyone's antenna. One is NOC, that's Northrop Grumman. Seems like it's had a super week last week in response to the assassination of Soleimani, and it's near a 383.99 buy point. Seems like it's acting well. The group is definitely out the gates really fast this year. And then on the cautionary side, I'd like people, because we talked a lot about NMI. That's the mortgage insurance play. The ticker is NMIH. It's number 10 on the IBD 50. It looks like it's threatening to do a round trip of a 16% gain from the 30.74 pivot. So I want to keep an eye on that, make sure that people don't get hurt by losing all the gains.
All right, and Mike, we'll come back to you, but we've only got 2 minutes before we open, and I want to have Ken. Besides Iran, what are the other headlines?
Okay, a quick 2-minute news headline wrap here. Good morning, everybody. Chris mentioned futures well off session lows. NASDAQ 100 actually up about 0.1%. Dow futures holding up pretty well, even as Walgreens reported disappointing earnings. That stock is down 5% in pre-market trading. And Boeing also under a little bit of pressure, but not too bad. There was news, it's 737-800 jet crashed in Tehran soon after takeoff, 176 people dead. So some are speculating that that could have been catastrophic engine failure, but Boeing down about 1%. That stock was strong yesterday on rumors that Warren Buffett had started accumulating a stake in Boeing, but so far Boeing not under a whole lot of selling pressure. On the earnings front, we've got Lennar trading higher on an earnings and sales beat. New home orders up 23%. This is interesting because we could see a breakout over a trend line for Lennar, possible gap above its 50-day moving average. So maybe we can take a look at Lennar and see how that opens, but shares are higher in pre-market trading. Luckin Coffee, this is a name that we have been talking about, a new issue with pretty good potential. The stock snapped a 3-session losing streak yesterday, but it is down 3% on news. It is expanding into vending machines to sell its coffee in China. That's going to come at a cost.
That's a great idea. That is a great idea.
Well, it's going to come at a cost, though, and so investors are kind of worried about that. So the stock is under selling pressure. Apparently, they're doing a share offering, a bond offering to fund to fund this expansion into vending machines. So stock is indicated lower. I think technical traders want to see luck and hold above the 33.20 buy point. And after the close, real quick, I know the market just opened, but really interested to see what Bed Bath & Beyond has to say. This is an interesting turnaround story in retail. CEO Mark Tritton took over in November. He was a former chief merchandising officer at Target, and Bed Bath & Beyond has shown a lot of relative strength. Stock has more than doubled in price in recent months, so we'll see what Bed Bath & Beyond earnings look like.
And what's the ticker on that one? I always forget it.
BBBY.
Okay.
BBBY. Right. This one's just below a 1789 entry. Not a can slim stock, but it definitely has the new going on with a new CEO with
and my mother's favorite store to shop at.
Hey, who doesn't like shopping?
No, but she has a great record of big winners. I think the stock doesn't look good, but
hey, I like Bed Bath. I bought my German-made vacuum cleaner there a year ago. It's the best vacuum cleaner I've ever bought.
So much great stuff. We all love Bed Bath & Beyond. You know, troubled company. They announced a big real estate transaction yesterday, a la Sears. They sold real estate holdings. They're leasing it back. Apparently netted the company about $250 million in net proceeds. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. Most importantly, though, Mark Tritton, pretty savvy CEO there.
Okay,
great point,
Ken. Let's jump to the market.
Yeah.
And
they also bought Cost Plus, and I've even bought goodies there, not just vacuum cleaners and oven mitts.
But it is a V-shaped, like 63% deep base, so I'm going to pass it for now. With a lot of overhead.
With a lot of overhead.
We'll take a look at that in a second, but let's take a look at the market, and we're up slightly at the open. Again, quite a bit different than it looked yesterday.
I was not expecting this.
Are the Qs up as well, Chris? Let's see.
Yep. They're up slightly. S&P's 0.1 like it was showing. Yep. What's also nice to see is the Russell is in line with the rest of the indexes, and especially last week there was kind of a disconnect between small caps and the rest of the market.
Can we go to a minute chart of the Qs maybe, just so we can kind of see? And maybe can you put the after hours action on there to show everybody that maybe if they weren't looking at what happened, so they understand
5 minute
how good this open is.
Done. Okay, so we're right. Oh, let me.
Yeah, you might have to go to a 10-minute to get it all in. So the shaded stuff is the after hours, right?
This is the after hours. This is the live market right here, and you can see, you know, the market was kind of, you know, in a fairly tight range yesterday, and then on news of the missiles, it plunged, and I think I was probably hiking right here,
but blissfully and well.
I was blissful right there about when I got the alert.
Well, and again, credit to Ed, who is so on top of the news. You know, I know you were hiking. I was at home. I got my my alert on my iPhone that futures dive on missile attack, and that's probably, I don't know, 3:30, 4 o'clock. So he is. I mean, if there's breaking news, you will hear about it from alerts from us for sure.
It was so quiet at LA airport. You would not have known that there was a missile attack. Yeah. It was. He stepped off the plane and was out of the airport in 15 minutes. It was unbelievably quiet, eerily quiet. So,
why don't we take a look at a couple stocks?
Yeah, let's do that. And let me turn off that. Get back. Okay, well, let's quickly see what's moving in the universe of our stocks, and that's anything that's over $10 and more than $20 million in dollar volume. So not a lot of, no names are really jumping up. Oh, Halozyme, H-A-L-O. That's breaking a downtrend. Is there news on that? Goldman initiated coverage with a buy rating and a 24 price target, so that's well above the area there. Let's look at that on MarketSmith.
And then after that, VRTX is moving a little bit.
Okay. So this is an interesting one because it's got sales there. It's going to be turning profitable this year, and it has had profits. Well, had a profit in 2017, so that's good to see. Looks kind of interesting, even though the RS line is really low. But if this turns out to be a real move and not simply a milestone payment or something like that, that
I don't think it's actionable right here. It feels like too steep of a downtrend, and there's so many things going on with it. But maybe the next setup.
Right. Something to maybe add to the watch list, but we'll need to do a little more research on it.
A lot of things are moving nicely.
Okay, let's look at Vertex.
Yeah, there's some stuff a little bit stronger than that right now, but
there
still
we go. New leaderboard name. We have very few biotechs on leaderboard, so it was nice to see you guys put that one on for sure. It was on the watch list on leaderboard and on leaderboard a year ago, right?
Yeah, so. and like a lot of times we've tried to play this one and it would just break out and then either go into another base or fail right there.
Yeah.
And it's been very tough. And now it really seems that with medical stocks coming back in, taking a leading role,
especially biotechs.
Yeah. That this one is ready to run now. So
I think we're all trading this one, right? I have a position.
Yeah,
you have a
me
position.
too.
Yeah, I'll probably be adding to it a little bit here too.
Really, the Cadillac at this point in the biotech industry.
Absolutely.
And interesting news item on Vertex recently is they're obviously the dominant player in the cystic fibrosis market.
Right.
They have a key drug that is already approved for 3 different indications to treat cystic fibrosis, and it was just approved expanded label for a 4th indication. So just dominant in cystic fibrosis, and really super healthy chart here.
Yep.
Yeah, and unlike remember we had Insight on leaderboard. That's also in the same biotech group, but this one is certainly more established. I would say. I still don't understand why INCY dropped so hard, but we had the sell signal even before that gap down. So if that stock, if Vertex were to reverse lower and start heading well below the 10-week line, then we would know there's something wrong. But right now, very strong.
Yeah, I think there was some news on a trial or something.
That's right.
Insight. Insight just had bad trial.
And that was after hours.
Yeah, so going back to Halozyme, I mean, unless there was some real substantial news on the drug front, I personally am always wary about these upgrades, by an analyst. There's going to be as many opinions on the downside too.
You know what? It looks like some home builders are moving. KBH is moving. Did the earnings already come out on that, or is that later this week?
Well, Lennar had good.
I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, I want to take a look at Lennar because that had a good open, and that looked to me like a possible trend line breakout today.
Okay, so from KBH, we'll go to Lennar and LEN. And I think you are correct, Ken.
I would have to agree with Ken and Chris there. Absolutely. It reminds me of when we added the Coupa software in leaderboard in January, February of last year. It was kind of an aggressive buy point, but you had spotted a nice trend line, and you're drawing like Coupa's trend line right there.
Yeah, but let's go back to Coupa for a second, and there was a major difference.
Oh God!
Oh, you're talking about the relative.
I need to bring in a soapbox for you to stand up.
I must have missed a conversation
talking about, and I think maybe we.
But I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
Remember, you actually, Chris, you initiated this conversation with the trend line, and I got on board. Ken was on board,
right.
and then I think we even maybe made a full position out of it after it finally cleared the left side of that base. So
right, and what we were looking at, it hadn't taken out the all-time high, although it was getting close. Everything is really compressed in here. It's a little hard to see. So the blue line is the relative strength line, but compared to this last peak, it was there, and then when it took out that peak, look, the relative strength line was right there. So right around where the stock actually broke out. So that's I wish it was a little clearer there, but that's what was going on. So
I was playing
back to Lennar.
Yeah, I was playing through the group, and it looks like Toll that tried a couple head fakes in there is a solid breakout here on massive volume. That's a real breakout. So I think, you know, that maybe you play an ETF off this move, you know, which one do you like the best? I think you like Nail or?
Yeah, I mean, I've not really traded it. It's the one I've been watching. I mean, we tried it on Leaderboard and we got shaken out of it. But
ITB is the other.
Oh, the ITB.
ITB is the unleveraged. I mean, who has
Yeah.
time for that?
Well, no, you make a good point. You want the triple leverage, make it behave like a stock. So I totally get that. Although ITB is not that far off, it's 52-week high, and that flat base in ITB, that's iShares U.S. Home Construction, is not unlike what we're seeing in something like TOL, like TOL.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just with this group tends to just move so closely together that, you know, I would probably, if you're a normal person, do with the ITB, the unleveraged, and then if you're an aggressive, not normal person, like a, you know, like a baby boomer / you know, high end of the Gen X, and if you're a millennial or a Gen Z person or whatever is before that, then I would do the Nail.
I would just say if the opposite of a normal person is an abnormal person. So you're calling me abnormal?
If the shoe fits.
Fair enough. All right.
Let's look at some other ones because what do you want to?
Well, you know, going back to toll,
moving.
guys, I mean, toll is very interesting, right? Because here again, you have the conundrum of RS line not at new high ground, but is rising sharply since January 1st. Legitimate breakout. I mean, it's clearing all that resistance around 41, 42, 41.80. I mean, Mike, I agree with you. It's a true breakout. We're seeing 6 times average volume. Of course, it's only 10 minutes in, but that RS line to me seems to be a product of this long base that is formed. You go to a weekly chart, Chris.
I agree with you, Dave, that it's really a product of this sector has been out of favor. Well, while you had, you know, some retail going, of course, we had cloud last year. So, you know, this seems like a rotation, and they tend to do head fakes with this, but I'm going to get a piece of some home builders today, whether it's through the ETF or one of these. I'm not a fan that the KBH still has earnings to go, but let's look at.
Well, it's kind of weird, Mike. If I don't mind to interject, see the January quarter earnings are supposed to fall 39% to 46 cents a share. So there's some kind of rotation, obviously, from institutional money into this sector, and they're really looking at maybe, is it lower interest rates lately? The yield curve is flattened a little bit. You know, is that going to spark more home buying?
It's got to be that. I mean, there was some pretty heavy selling in this group in late October and in the first week of November. And I remember we were talking about saying, well, maybe home builders are done here and they're going to, you know, not be a pocket of leadership. But since mid-November, the group has quietly rallied back, and you know, certainly with the Fed expected to stand pat on the Fed funds rate this year, the prospect for lower interest rates still looks very good, and that should go well for the builders. Yeah.
Okay, let's jump to a stock that's near and dear to one person's heart here.
You?
No.
Right back at you, Mike. I traded this stock last year. I'm watching it. I've answered a few questions with Justin on this. And we've been noting that the retake of the 50-day moving average, that red line, is definitely positive. But keep in mind, it's over 60% off the all-time high, which is still also the 52-week high. In my view, you want to, unless you're really aggressive and you want to swing trade this or something, maybe best to wait for the right side of the basis, you know, continue forming.
Would you wait for this stock, Mike?
Well, let me just tell you something. As grew up a strict Catholic, I feel like I have to go to confession right now.
Okay.
So forgive me, because it's been like 30 years since my last confession, and I bought a stock with overhead resistance yesterday, and it happened to be this one. And I've never done, we were talking about this earlier, and I was hoping it wasn't going to come up on the show because it's so against what I normally do. But I'm a vegetarian, been a vegetarian since I was 19. So I've kept a close eye on this stock. I will never, I have no desire to eat fake meat, but, I think it's really helpful for the cause. You've got all the millennials and the Gen Zs who, are into being vegan or vegetarian, and leaving all that aside, you have this niche niche, kind of like Snap was for the younger people and Facebook originally was. Now it's for the older people. So you've got this product that's really hot. And I had traded it after from the IPO base on up, and then once it broke the 50-day, it was off my radar to buy, but I've always followed it. And then yesterday, as it went through on such heavy volume, I couldn't help but buy some, and it's very, very unorthodox, and most people shouldn't buy it. But I think there's a short squeeze here, and a compelling product. But I'm taking a shot on it, and I actually think it has a pretty high chance. Once it gets up to 100, that's going to be really the test, because you've got that gap over there.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a round number, and that's where the shorts, which are heavy in here, are going to want to pounce on it and push it down. So that's what I'm waiting to see how it handles itself there. But I actually built a decent position in it.
The optimism here is that they're eventually going to strike a deal with McDonald's and get their get their product into McDonald's, because McDonald's ended discussions yesterday with Impossible Foods, I believe.
Impossible Foods, right? Also Northern California. Now, when I was in Madrid, almost every day I saw a huge posters everywhere across the city for the Rebel Burger. The Rebel Burger. What is that? It's actually the plant-based burger for Burger King. So they call it in Spain the Rebel Burger. And all of the Burger Kings were quite busy when I was walking around. Very few McDonald's, but they were there. They weren't advertising it. But very, very interesting possible global phenomenon here, Mike.
It really
in terms of the plant-based burger.
And they can, the restaurants can get, a higher margin. I was at Islands the other day with my parents, and, for the burger, you could either have a veggie burger for no extra cost, or it was either the Impossible or the Beyond for an extra $3. So just think of the margin. So it's a win-win. It helps the planet, it helps animals, and it helps businesses make more money. Now, look, if this thing fails, I'm out of it, man. You
can always get back in on it.
Let's keep moving. And Juan Mendez was asking about Infi, noting that it was following on yesterday's breakout, which was very impressive, and I know a lot of us picked up more shares in it. The just the last few minutes, it started to pull back a little bit, but it still looks like great action. There's nothing.
That's a classic buy, and that's what most people should be buying. This, 99% of the people should not be doing something with 60% overhead. I'm waiting for the lightning bolt to hit me, but
well, guys,
this is
you
great
guys added
action.
this to Swing Trader, and I was very, first of all, excited for that, because I knew that being on leaderboard is acting well. It's going up to new highs. But like right now, it looks like 80 is a little bit of a hard hat existence right there, right? It's just kind of trying to get back past 80. It's hitting its head against that level. In terms of a swing trade, what is the exit here, guys? I didn't get a chance to read the entire strategy on Swing Trader, but
I think we could get 82, 83 or so. And these days, what we're trying to do is, if it's trending, wait for it to close below the low of the prior day. So we're trying to give things a bit more room. And so that, I think, for a swing trade, that's where the easy money is. After that, it might be pushing it. But for a position trade, like a leaderboard type trade, this we could easily get 20% out of this there.
Well, we're getting close to 20%, Mike, on our initial entry in leaderboard from that big gap up. That was in the fourth quarter, October. Because back then the buy point was, and we've mentioned this on on IBD Live, 66.66. So you multiply that by 1.2, then you're getting towards 79. It actually is at a profit-taking zone from that buy point.
Right.
Can we go to Sedged? I think you had it up there, SEDG. And that is handling itself nicely. Again, just like the IPHI, I think most of us have.
Muy bien, senor.
And why I bring this up is it's acting nicely, but it's extended, so it's 7% from the buy point, so you don't want to be initiating a position here. If you have a position, you just want to make it slightly bigger. Let's say you have 100 shares, maybe you add 1 or 2 shares, and just adjust that to your account size, but you wouldn't want to do another 10 or 15 or anything too big, because then you're going to run your average costs up. But this is great action, especially, put it in the context of what, the news that we're dealing with right now. But that's a classic cup with handle, kind of picture perfect. The RS line, like we both like, or all of us like, is really nice, don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's also a good example of, if you missed the first breakout, and I talked about this yesterday, I was busy on Thursday and then out Friday, and I'm like, kicking myself that I missed it, but I didn't didn't forget about it. And then when it pulled back and it was normal volume, picked up some shares there. And so it's a good lesson that if you miss the breakout, don't give up. A lot of times it's very normal for them to pull back.
Absolutely.
And the volume was just like what you want to see.
You know what's great, Chris? You got the Marcus Smith chart that shows the 10-day moving average too, right? That the green line. And look how it bounced right off that 10-day, and it was just right in the heart of the handle area.
Actually, that's my drawing. That looks like a bounce. There it goes. Oh, you're right. The 10-day.
That was and that's perfect. That's exactly what you like.
And so what I'm sorry, I was thinking 10-day green line on the leaderboard chart.
I know.
but what do we call the color of that?
How to change the colors here.
Hey, Mike, are you calling that 10-day line the fuchsia line? Is that the
I don't
exact
like
color?
Terms like that.
No, I call it the fuchsia line.
Yeah, I like it. We should have like real colors.
Right.
Red, blue.
Ken, what are you seeing?
I just wanted to make a final point on Infi, which is a leaderboard stock, and just to finish up a conversation there. We did have a nice breakout from a base yesterday, and I did get a few questions from leaderboard subscribers. Was this a good opportunity to add? If it's currently a half position on leaderboard, and is it a good opportunity to make full? And by definition, yeah, it was. It was a good, solid, heavy volume breakout. But yesterday on leaderboard, we had another opportunity to add to a position, and we actually chose to add to the true leader that we have, which is NVIDIA. Right. And if we can pull up a weekly chart of NVIDIA, we made that position full yesterday just because of the tight trading it's been showing in recent weeks. This is a classic example of a 3 weeks tight pattern forming here. It hasn't quite cleared the entry yet. Are we looking? Right. Yeah.
Right
so
almost
it faded a little bit, and but the volume was running.
But this is a stock that we added to leaderboard several weeks ago when it initially cleared a 188.50 buy point. So it's been a nice winner for us, continuing to hold nicely above its 10-week moving average. And those tight weekly closes, that's just really nice action to see after a breakout. So we'll see if it can.
I think that's a great point, Ken, because we have ASML, AMD, IPHI, and NVIDIA on, and they're half positions on all of them in the group. We're all sitting trying to decide. We wanted to increase some exposure. We didn't want to increase it too much. So about a week ago, we were looking as a team at the IPHI, and we were ranking each one of them coming into the year. And the IPHI was the weakest, even though we liked it. It was the weakest, and I think we had AMD, NVIDIA, ASML, IPHI, if I'm recalling. So that's why when NVIDIA was giving us this little kind of shelf / 3 weeks tight thing, that's where we wanted to increase it, where AMD was out of position to make full.
Yeah.
And even though IPHI was your classic cookie cutter, solid buy, and you needed to buy some if you didn't have some, and we all did that. But the NVIDIA was one that is the leader, and I think going to a weekly or a monthly it really brings that point home.
There's a question from Kurt Hostetter. Thanks, Kurt, and he's asking, what would Bill say about the fundamentals of NVIDIA?
I think that's a great point. Bill is very orthodox, and let me pull it up on a different platform. so I can kind of see the
This is definitely a turnaround play because the next quarter earnings are supposed to double, 107%, and everyone's already priced in for sure the drop last year in earnings and sales.
So one way that Bill would look at things with turnarounds and in our models, like a quarter of them are turnarounds. So, 3/4 of them are normal cookie cutter. A quarter are ones like this. And he would look exactly where you're pointing to is that the estimate there of the 731 for 2021, so $7.31, that's higher than its last peak, which is the $6.64. So if that wasn't there, he would shy away from it. But since it's the estimates are already, and estimates tend to be low, are already showing a full recovery, he would consider it. Now on the other side of it, the reality is he likes to have positive quarterly numbers, and we've got negative ones. And so I think that, from an orthodox standpoint, he'd probably, in most cases, shy away, from it. So if you're super orthodox, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm not going to play. But, I think sometimes we
and that was our right, and that was our logic. We're looking at the year ahead.
And Dave mentioned that earnings are expected to double. We're not going to hear from NVIDIA until February, their next earnings report. But earnings, Dave is correct, they are expected to double to $1.66 a share thereabouts. But even more impressive, revenue up 34% to almost $3 billion. So this is just a classic turnaround story, and it's really the case with all chip stocks, whether it's chip equipment, fabless firms, chip makers.
Exactly.
It's very common to see a lot of declining earnings, declining sales, but obviously the market's betting on a turnaround, and that's why they've been outperforming.
And one more question on NVIDIA, and then we'll move on. Kelvin Crawford asks, can you create a new position here with the 3 weeks tight breakout? So how would you guys approach that?
Ken, what would you say?
Well, I think that's what, why we added to the inquiry where the position went from half to full yesterday because of the tight trading, and to me there's a very clear 3 weeks tight entry. It's been a solid move since the breakout over 188.50, and there was a test of the 10-week moving average back in early December. But this is just proving itself to be a strong stock. So it's not to establish an initial position here. You definitely want to think about position sizing, and you go small to start, and see how it works. If it continues to show relative strength, after that, then you can increase it a little bit. But the key here is it looks actionable if it can clear this recent high, but small starter position, nibbler.
So given that you're buying Beyond Meat, well off the bottom.
If this thing doesn't work out, I'm never going to hear the end. That's okay. I'll get a Beyond Meat hat and wear it if it fails. How about that?
I guess my point would be, what, if you missed it and you also didn't get it off the pullback, you could start a position here. Yeah. And again, what I would do is just size it to the 10-week moving average and decide how much you want to risk. Know that you're really extended. It could base at this point, so you're not going to.
I totally agree with that.
I wouldn't risk 1% of your portfolio, but maybe 0.5%, and start doing something like that. And you just take whatever that number is, divide it by.
Try it on for size.
Can we go to the daily, and I'll point out a rule that I'm probably going to be talking about on the podcast, that if you and this came out of a post analysis from a stock many years ago, if you break out of this little thing, so let's say you're starting your position here, you don't have it, you've been waiting for it, it had too much overhead for you before, which it did. It was kind of unusual for us to put this on earlier. And you're buying it as it goes through the 242, let's say. If it comes back in and it falls back into, let's say, 241-ish in that area, sell half of what you just bought. And if it falls in more, like in the middle of that thing, just blow out that position. You can always buy it back, but that's your sign that it's not doing what you're expecting it to do. And expectations are important.
So, and David is asking, would you use a trailing stop? But I think in this case, you're looking more for is it breaking technical things?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone back and forth. Sometimes I'll use trailing stops, but I'm moving away from those and looking for closes below support. And like you're saying,
Yeah.
if it falls back into the base or it closes below the 10-week moving average on a weekly close, that's where I'm going to be making moves rather than just putting a stop loss order in there.
Yeah, a stop loss is better than nothing. A trailing stop is better than nothing. But if you can find something logical on the chart, that's always going to trump it.
Yeah. We've got a question about DT, Dynatrace, and it looks like it's pulling back again. You know what? I hadn't really checked. It reversed a lot more yesterday than when we were first looking at it in the morning, and today it's down, but it's off the low, which is good. So it's, I'd prefer to see it up today, but it's still not.
Actually, I'm very we both have a position in this,
Yeah.
right? And I have a decent position in it, even though I don't have any big positions. Well, I have one decent position, but so I'm really spread out. But this is one of the bigger ones, and I love this action because and what I love is we have that huge breakout, massive spread on the highest volume, that we've had in about a month. And then yesterday's downside reversal, that's going to shake out. This is a millennial / Gen Z type of mover, like a TTD. This is a hot stock, and too hard to handle for most people. So yesterday shook some people out. I would have been more concerned if it would have just ran straight to 32, because then lots of people would have profits in it. And then today's action, if we were to close here and have less volume than yesterday, I would say it's picture perfect type of action right after a breakout. You wouldn't want it to go much lower than today's low, in my opinion. Then it's going to start feeling like a failed breakout. But don't have a big position in this because this is a squirrely.
Right. So
one.
let's jump back to the market, and things have actually improved. So we opened flat, and now the Nasdaq's up 0.38. And Justin, did Trump make a statement yet or anything like that? It seems like a pretty strong move. Okay, we can go to the tweets and see if there's anything there.
I'm looking.
Nothing that I can see.
Yeah, the last one he had was 12 hours ago. The
yeah.
all is well, which was,
that's when
I was so happy to hear that no one passed away.
So he might plan something in the afternoon, right, from the White House. If he talks at 1 p.m., then it would be 10 a.m. our time here in California, right? So we probably still some hours to go. But clearly, with all of the indexes at the first hour highs, that's definitely positive. Looks like the 10-year T-bond yield is also pretty stable, 1.82%. The positive yield curve is still there. Very nice reaction. Right,
Can we go back to
VRTX? Gordon, just want to say.
Also, I want to point out, guys, that Vertex is continuing to act well since we talked about it.
Before we jump to that, let me. Gordon Melton just said the Trump statement is at 10 a.m. Central, so that would be 8 o'clock our time,
right,
and 11 East Coast time. So thanks, Gordon. Appreciate that.
Much appreciated.
Okay, back to Vertex.
Oh, just quickly mentioning that this one still seems to be in the buy zone, and also because we mentioned it right as a 3 weeks tight. Is that right, Ken? When it was added to leaderboard.
Just a first solid. Excellent test of the 10-week.
This is a Shreve special. If I saw one.
No,
lately.
This is really. Listen. I always say there's a difference between when a stock is testing support and finding support with conviction. You kind of get these tests of support where there's no bounce and it's kind of holding there. But when you're making a buy off the 10-week moving average, this is how you do it. Okay, it's got to be a conviction bounce, and this is one of the better first tests of the 10-week line that I've seen in recent.
And also just to Ken's point, Chris has got the daily chart of Vertex right now, right? And you can see in the past 2 weeks, if you look at all of the volume bars, they're all quiet except for the up days in price. So that's a nice change in character there. All below average volume on the 5 or 6 most recent down days.
Yeah,
on a daily chart.
Right. So you could, like you say, it's still in buy range there, although we added it when it broke off on the, at least on Swing Trader, when it broke the downtrend, and then we added it on Leaderboard yesterday because there was some discussion like, oh, we don't want biotechs on Leaderboard, and I kind of said, we need to have this one on.
Well, I mean, to replace INCY, I mean, let's be completely forthright with it, because we acted well with INCY. We had a lot of high hopes for it. We had good coverage about this company. It's in a great field of biotech, leader in blood cancers. I personally am very, very interested in hoping for their success. I don't own shares. I'm just saying that it's nice that we continue to have this amazing cycle of innovation going on in biotech, and INCY, VRTX. These are the ones you would be looking for. I was while I was away, I did briefly look through the entire biotech sector, because it's probably the largest industry group, in terms of number of companies. And as Ken and Chris, you both said, there are not that many that are really acting well. It's almost, to me, it kind of reminds me sometimes of what someone told me about software, enterprise software. You've got the king and then the pawns. It's like winner takes all kind of situation in a certain market. So, Vertex is a winner take all market in cystic fibrosis. Maybe Insight is not a winner take all kind of situation in blood cancer. So,
well, I'd say that I would break up the. Oh, go ahead.
Let's jump to a stock that you wanted to talk about earlier, and that's PGNY.
Yeah.
Pierre, is asking about it.
Yeah. So
this is a nice comeback. Nice comeback by this stock. Yeah.
So I have a position in it again, and I tried this earlier, and and it didn't work out, and so I'm buying it back, and that's how you have to treat stocks. Is don't try to make it back on it. It's just you completely divorce yourself from your prior trade, compartmentalize that loss, move forward, and just say, is this something that looks good to me? And so, just stepping back from this, this really nice prior uptrend, perfect IPO base, breaks out and it fails. So you have to sell, sell it as it fails. It's very high octane. So this is a Gen Z, / millennial stock. And it came back, and right now, I started buying it 2 days ago, and then I added to it yesterday, because this was my expectation, is that it was going to recover, move, and do exactly what it's doing right now. The story is very compelling. Don't we have an article in the paper about this one?
Oh, there was a recent New America article, Mike. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. I believe. Yeah.
So is it, a really compelling story, people should go and read that, and so yesterday was really your buy point, and it's kind of, if you see that there's this like mini cup / additional IPO base. So you had one IPO base, it fails from there. Now this is kind of in the vein of a new IPO base, and yesterday it was going through your prior resistance. I was starting to buy it the day before that, because I'm buying what I call setup days, which is your expectation is going to move up, and that was because the way it closed on that day, and it took out the resistance from the day before.
So I'm sorry. So you bought it on
3 days? No. I bought it 2 days ago. Yeah, there. And that's what I've always called a setup day, meaning it's setting up expectations that it's going to move over that resistance. Yeah. So it was a nibble, that's why I'm anticipation buy. So I don't go heavy there. And then yesterday, when it did what I expected it to do, then I hit it harder, because it was following through on that, and the character was, I'm able to read the character. You have, when you can anticipate a stock and it does what you expect it to do, you have an edge. When it does something unexpected, you have no edge. You have to back away. And so I have high hopes for it. But if it fails, if it goes below yesterday's low and closes there, I'm out of it.
Okay.
And I just have can I make a comment here?
This setup yesterday, that the stock is basically right where it closed yesterday, and it's below. So I think it's
perfect.
Completely actionable to take a nibble.
Yeah. Can I make a comment? I want to say, I think Mike knows really this this company and the stock really, really well, much more than say myself, even though we
I don't
talked
think
about
so.
it. Well, no, I mean, in a sense of like, I haven't traded this stock yet.
Okay.
I was just marveling at the rise and so forth. But personally, I would, if I were to follow the rules, what they say, a cup with handle, this one is
Well, it's too short.
narrow, right? Yeah. So even if it ultimately doesn't work out, hey, it still might form the right side of this base, and maybe a handle will firm around 30 or something. So, you know, it's still, regardless of what happens in the next several days, maybe a true can slims type of pattern is really going to.
It's like 4.5 weeks into a new base, but I mean, do not give up on this stock for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is this could easily yield an alternate entry here.
And John Donovan just posted that Progeny is going to be the CEO is going to be presenting next Monday at 11 a.m. at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. And this is like the biggest biotech healthcare conference of the year. Our writer, Allison Gatlin, is going to be all over it. But that's good to know. So we'll definitely make a note of that. So 11 Pacific time, it'll be after we're done.
Hey, also,
we've got a hand raised over here.
Yeah.
Who's raising their hand?
No, I've got a hand raise. I've got a hand raise. I got a hand raise. So it's just a little
I was
econ.
just waving to somebody. Yeah.
Econ news update to everybody. I know this is a little bit old news now, but the ADP private sector report just blew the estimate out of the water.
Okay, so
Econoday on our website showed 157,000 jobs expected net growth. It came in at 202,000. And that's even higher than the tippity top estimate of 180K. So that was probably helping the positive tone ahead of the
I think that number
was
came out
pre-market.
Yeah, it came out pre-market, but it was definitely a big. The ADP is that's a pre-market report, but it was definitely a big beat, no doubt. But I actually wanted to call out Luckin Coffee that we talked about in pre-market trading. It was kind of whooshing lower on a share offering and a debt offering, and news that they're expanding into vending machines. But this stock has reversed higher.
Nice.
It came down close to kind of a 33.58 entry here. I'm not sure it's actionable now, but Chris, you may want to chime in here. But very impressive performance. This was down 3% for real on pretty good volume in pre-market. It has reversed higher, now up about 5%. So
that's a good sign when the street says, "Okay, we believe in your plans here."
Absolutely true.
Well, I think that as soon as you said that in the news, it's like, this is a no-brainer, because you have, even though labor over there has got to be dirt cheap relative to like a Starbucks over here, you've got, if it's just a vending machine and it's just kind of like a red box type of situation where you just have someone
but Mike, actually, that's not actually true, because as an example, Japan, they've had canned coffee sold by Coca-Cola. It's called Georgia. Name of your dog. Georgia Coffee. They invested right after World War II, and it took them decades before they really became the #1 canned coffee company in Japan.
It
was canned coffee in a can.
But I think that he wasn't saying it was canned. I thought you said it was vending machine. So
well,
it's fresh,
you could have various. We'll see whether they have it in various forms. But I think initially people are wondering, like, how much is it going to? How much time will it take before it becomes very profitable? You'd have to think that in China too, there's probably going to be a lot of competitors on these vending machine spaces, because it's all about convenience there.
Yeah.
Well, you might be right.
Looking at the weekly chart, I mean, it's good action right now. It would be, if it closed here, that would be a 3 weeks tight, but not ideal, because there's some
pretty volatile
swings there.
Exactly.
But, if it can trade, I know this might be difficult, trade tightly for a week or two, then the 10-week is going to catch up to it, and they might offer an entry point there, or it truly might create a little shelf or something like that. So
that one has just been too. I trade these hot, fast stocks, but for some reason, maybe it's just because I've been burned with thinner Chinese names in the past, that it just feels too risky. But man, that's kept me out of this move. It's up 36%.
Right.
Kicking myself the whole way.
Well, it's always tough when they break out from the bottom of the base like that, and I mean, I guess you could look at this area as the very high handle after. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just it's so unusual, right? That's been the problem, and but yeah, I think it looks really good. And the reality is, the thing is up 36%, and then off the bottom, it's up a ton more than that.
So Greg Theodore is asking about TDOC, saying breakout exclamation point, good to go question mark. So what do you guys think about this one?
Teladoc.
Yeah, this one's been tricky because, you know, it has no earnings. Nice sales growth, 418 million in sales 2018. Well, I guess we'll get the full count. I don't understand how the stock has such big losses, net losses per share, $1.44 net loss expected for this year, and then $1.16 in 2020. Yet there are a lot of corporate clients. I mean, even IBD uses, had used Teladoc.
Had used it.
Had used Teladoc, right. A huge short interest in this, everyone. 20.8 times the average volume of 1.2 million shares. I mean, that is
21
even
days.
more than,
Wow.
Yeah, it says 20.8 times. If you,
quite honestly, that's the reason to buy it right now, because that
Could
would
be.
be you know, a short squeeze in the making if it really, especially on earnings, if it gaps up.
Yeah, this does not look like a powerful breakout
No.
to me. Obviously, you know, Friday's big gain came in very light volume. It's still holding above the buy point here. Volume is light again. So whether or not this stock does not look like it's under you know, meaningful accumulation in recent days, but
and I'm trying to see. Let me move that.
Still losing a lot of money too. Decent sales growth. Interesting company.
Well, I mean, it's not that great a sales growth. I mean, this is what, you know, kind of going back to the question that we got about NVIDIA and, you know, making the exceptions there. You know, it's got no earnings. It has no earnings in sight. It's got a great concept. I don't know how big the barriers to entry are. And it's got decelerating sales growth, even though it's at 24. I say, you know, I like your thing of that it's short interest. Maybe it spikes up, but I say move on to something.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so
how about moving on to
actually,
software?
People are asking about Costco.
Oh,
and
okay.
And this is something that we need to talk about as well too.
Yeah.
So let's see. James Berry is asking about at Costco on leaderboard. At what time do you exit? Since I exited already, I would re-enter when it breaks the downtrend line? Question mark. And I think there's a couple other folks asking about it.
I would say if you're out of this stock, and I could see why, because it's wearing on our patience, and I think Chris is going to walk through the logic that we have here. But I would just wait for it to go through 300 to buy it back, because the one that would clear this downtrend that we have. That's a very obvious downtrend. It would clear the 50-day, and it would clear a nice round number and get back above, you know, kind of the last base, you know, alternative pivot where it broke out of. So that's what, I don't own it right now. I love the company. I love the employees. You know, everything about it is it's such a pleasant place to shop, just not to park. And
at least in California, right?
Yeah, at least in California. But
Yeah.
you know, how are we? Why don't you walk through how we're doing this?
Can I? I just want to say something about Costco too. You know, and we have it on leaderboard. It's wearing us out. There's no doubt about it. It's only 5% off its high. I mean, one thing I've been looking at is that since December 12th, specifically December 12th, when it traded above average volume, you know, and you go from December 12th to now, you see several above average blue bars where volume was heavy in the stock and it traded higher, but it's just not making any headway. It just can't get above that 50-day moving average. So, I mean, it's one thing if this had been just kind of consolidating below the 50-day in bone dry volume and, you know, not such a big deal, but, you know, you've had heavy volume for, you know, a few weeks now, and to me it just kind of looks like it's churning below the 50-day. So, you know, this is I know we're giving it the benefit of the doubt for now. I totally agree with Mike. I mean, a gap above the 50-day, a decisive move above the 300 level would make the stock actionable again, but it is
you know,
just
I agree
not
with
showing
both of you
great
guys.
price action.
You know, I have a small amount of shares in one account I'm managing, and I'm just trying to not even think about this stock week to week. I'm trying to like just look at it maybe once every quarter, but at the same time, I totally agree with Mike saying, wait for it to really crack through 300 on the upside before you consider buying, because you want to see some real strength, just like what Target did, a couple months ago when it gapped up on the earnings. Did that 3 times in a row, right? You want to see that kind of power if you want to make some real money in either the short term or the long term. So here again, like I said, I'm probably down 2 points or 3 points in the small position I have in an account. I don't care right now. I mean, it's acting the way it usually does.
Right. So, and that's kind of the logic. We were debating it yesterday and saying, should we take it off? Shouldn't we? And what I told Mike is, we've been in this situation so many times with these longer term leaders that where our patience then, and then we go back and look at like how many times did we own MasterCard or Visa or TDG and not really understand that this is something that will, can wear your patience, but over the longer term, it can make a big move. So kind of technically what we're looking at right now is we bought it right down here where it came above the 50-day during the correction during August and September. And so it was showing great relative strength at the time. And right now we looked at the number, and I think Justin, the 40-week is actually slightly above our entry point. And so the idea is, you know what, it's only 5% off the high. It's not doing anything a lot right now. It's a half position. We've got lots of exposure in the market, and it probably can't hurt us too bad.
Right.
But if we're going to try and say, okay, can this turn into a longer term leader, and can we get a move like this out of it, especially since overall the RS line is trending higher, which means it's outperforming the S&P. That's why we're trying to sit with it and give it the benefit of the doubt right now, because there's an N in it, in the N in Can Slim, and that is China.
China, that's right.
One store, they got, they're ramping up. They're not taking off right now. But again, if that rollout really works, it's like it's a do-over.
It's a game
moment.
chamber.
Right. It's like buying Costco back, 30 years ago when it was just not even Costco.
Great point, Chris. And think about this, right? Tesla, it's amazing. We almost went the full session without talking about Tesla.
Why would we do that?
And Tesla, I own shares, still own shares.
Yeah,
but
me too.
Pointing out how this is a stock that's really thriving in China. Here again, right? Here's a China connection, because they're actually really ramping up fast. And I
can't wait to see how he's going to intertwine Tesla and Costco. I'm sorry to interrupt. I am all ears, man.
Okay, all right. Give me a moment. Give me a moment, my friend.
We've got a lot of
sorry. Then we can move on.
It's just see, Costco cannot expand in another emerging market such as Latin America, because you already have another company called PriceSmart, PSMT. They've got the Latin America market, and there's no way Costco will go into Latin America, but they're going into China big. So that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. That is a very good China opportunity without hopefully the Luckin coffee type of volatility.
Okay.
Moving on.
So Pritesh is asking about Trex. So another building related company. They make the I guess the fake decking, not fake decking, wood alternative decking, which I really like. If I ever build a deck, I would build it with Trex type material. So that's moving. It doesn't really have a lot of volume though.
Yeah, it seems volume. Like it might be being pulled up because that whole group is moving.
Yeah,
right. So I would go more to the leader. Whether you decide that's toll or KBH in front of earnings.
Yeah, I mean that RS line looks exactly like toll.
Got real. Oh yeah, the RS line has.
RS line, yeah. I mean, because it's been basing for 24 months or whatever. So, but we know Trex has been a proven winner. It's had some real strong breakouts and good moves. Still the leader in decking. And Chris, you're going to be a future customer. as you say, right?
No, 'cause
That's a good sign. So.
there's no place for me to build a deck at my house. So,
well, in the future, your future.
oh, okay, the
weekend
future,
home.
Mr. Gittes. Then Pierre is asking about InMode. We always like to check in on that. Everyone's favorite.
Didn't that have a big
streamer.
day yesterday?
It had a nice
made a nice
update
move yesterday.
This is at no
following through
touch still,
today.
man. It's underneath the 50.
Totally.
It's living under the. Wait for it to. It's a very, it's got a very tight story.
Right.
But it's not a tight acting stock, and so I would wait.
So we'll wait on that. Ken?
I wanted to check in on Ring Central, RNG. This is a stock that tried to clear a buy point yesterday, reversed lower in average volume. It's retaking the buy point today, no volume, a little bit reminiscent of Paycom. Paycom has got, 5, 6 up sessions in a row, no volume in that stock as it clears a buy point. So couple.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so be careful with Paycom and Ring Central, two stocks trying to break out. At least with Ring Central, you do have some signs of accumulation here in recent days. Relative strength line is lagging. Paycom, no volume at all in Paycom's recent breakout attempt.
Yeah, I wanted to check on Splunk because I got an alert a few minutes ago, and it poked above yesterday's high. But we're still not seeing any real volume as it tries to go above that 152.78 area of resistance. So I'd like to see more about that.
Mm-hmm.
In general, I think we're seeing positive action in enterprise software. I was going to mention
that's definitely
ServiceNow, guys. NOW, not acting, strong today, but still getting close to exiting the 5% buy zone of a recent buy point, 284.39. And I don't know, we might even consider that one for other like leaderboard and so forth in the future. No heavy volume since that big gap up in November. But, getting close to 300, I would suspect that maybe a handle will form at this point, or, big earnings on the first report by its new CEO. Its old CEO, Donahoe, went to Nike, NKE. So, this would be very, very interesting to see what the new CEO, presents to Wall Street.
Can we go to Paycom? Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, go to what you want.
Well, let's go to Dexcom because that was Dean Harrison asking about it, and he says it's down 1% today below the buy point. Your thoughts?
I don't think the chart pulled up yet.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, I'm just trying to read and do too much at one time. So he's asking, on a pullback like this, should you sell? And no, this is absolutely normal, not a problem like that.
Well, let's go through it because we have a position, and the reason being it's acting completely normal. We talked about normal, abnormal. It's an inside day, meaning the high and the low is contained within the prior day. So you almost never take action on a day like that. It's just marking time. It's doing everything exactly right. Maybe it goes sideways for a couple days or even pulls in, but we had 2 strong days. You can have a couple, sideways or down days. That's going to make it more sustainable on the way up. I do have a position in this one.
Me too. And the volume today is low, whereas yesterday it was above average. So
you guys are supposed to say, I don't have a position when you don't have it, right? I mean, we assume that.
Well, I went from 40.
Well, that was the whole joke when we're out.
Well, I had 40 stocks. Now I'm down into like 22. So I'm consolidating. Yeah.
Good for you. Okay. I have shares in this one too. I think it's very positive action. I'm looking for a new entry point. I was initially waiting for a test of the 10-week line, and it just hasn't really. I mean, it maybe earlier this week I had a small opportunity, but there's no volume. So, overall acting well. Also when you guys look at DXEM, always keep an eye on PODD and TNDM. That's insulin and tandem diabetes, because what I noticed while I was away watching stocks from Spain, when I take a look at Dexcom, I was wondering, well, how are the other two doing? And they've been acting really well too. In fact, maybe PODD is showing a little more strength than tandem, but overall the group move seems to be positive. Wouldn't you agree, guys?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it's
Want to pull up pod?
PODD, Insulet. I think they're a little bit more profitable, a little bit better C and A and CanSlim than Tandem, but they both are really fierce competitors and leaders in their niche.
I totally agree with you. I have a position in it too. You do too, right, Chris?
Yep.
Yeah, and what's nice about this and what's great about weekly charts is seeing, a steady accumulation. And if you look at that beautiful cup with handle that it formed, and it went up, I don't know how many weeks in a row, but a lot. Let's just say
at least 10.
And then pulled into the 10-week line, had that powerful move up. And so, that's a big deal looking at the character of the stock. How are you looking at this one?
Yeah, very, very similar. And it's been acting so well and perfect. And going back to a concept that you're writing about, expectation breakers, that let's say something
Hey,
happened.
I wrote about it. Now that Dave's back, he just has to edit it.
So
good luck with that, man.
I have not, I'm still, haven't seen that email yet, so don't worry. Yeah, you got time to work on your second or third draft, right, Mike?
So I would say, if for some reason it reversed and closed below the low of this base, that would be an expectation breaker, and it's no longer like the powerful leader on the move, and so that would be problematic for me. It would also be a close below the 10-week, and I'd be out.
Absolutely. And look at this, guys. Look at the down weeks. No heavy volume in those. Was it 5 down weeks in a row? That's like super smooth, very, very light volume. And of course, it's during the holidays, but still, that's still positive for the stock. It looks like
and it's still, it's very close. So again, if you miss this,
it's still actionable,
right? And going back to, is this normal action? Yeah. It pulled back a little bit yesterday, and it's just holding steady right there. The volume was higher than the I don't know, the last 5 or 7 days, going right here, if I can.
And if you want to wait for it to break out of this flat base for a traditional buy, there's nothing wrong with that too.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So we'll be adding to it at that point.
Right. So you could nibble here or not, or just wait and buy it there. So that's
last point, guys, is that look at the earnings estimates for this at the top left corner of that Marcus Smith chart. There are few, even in IBD 50, right, with earnings expected to grow 227% next for the current year, on top of another triple-digit increase. So that is just phantasmal. Or fantastic, or fantastical,
phantasmal,
magnifico.
Oh, there you go. We're nearing the end of the show, but
how'd that happen? That went so fast.
I know, but because there's so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
So, Pixel is saying, Dave, you mentioned NMIH at the top of the show, and
yes,
like we should really check in on that before.
I don't have any position in this. I'm just trying to alert the fact that I don't like how it's trading below the 10-week line.
No,
it's not exactly living below it yet, but you want to see that get support right at that pivot point. That I believe I mentioned 30.74. It is a little bit disappointing that after a 16% gain, now the stock is kind of slid below that 10-week line and it's testing it. But just watch it week to week. Certainly, you want to see low volume on these down weeks, and hopefully you'll get a nice pop back up. I just don't know whether the flattening of the yield curve has anything to do with the stock's recent action, but we still have a positive yield curve, 24 basis points from the 2-year to the 30-year. And if Toll and Trex, right, all these companies continue to show good action, then you would think this one, and then what was that?
Because it's a mortgage insurer.
Exactly, yeah. Right. There's another one, Ken, on the IBD 50, it's been on in mortgage insurance. We had it on leaderboard before, but I think that one's been slow and steady mover too. So if that one acts well, hopefully NMI will continue its reign within the IBD 50. It's been on there every week. So.
Right, and the other thing for me is last week it closed 2% below the 10-week. So if I had it, I would be out at that point. And if you didn't do that, it's continued to go sideways, and the 10-week is now moved up higher. So right now, it's down 3.6% from the 10-week. So again,
and the bottom line, in a strong market, and we're obviously still in a strong market right now, you expect top rated stocks with high composite ratings, after successful breakouts to make successful tests of the 10-week moving average, like a Vertex. There's several other examples.
Precisely.
The fact that NMI Holdings is not really doing that is, potentially problematic.
Yeah, and I think it's great that Dave brought it up, and I think you should be out of it. And I think the stock that you were probably referring to was ESNT.
That's right, Mike.
Right.
That's right. ESNT.
That faked us out too. So there just seems something's off, and you can always buy them back.
ESNT is even further below its 10-week moving average. So, I mean, for the long-term holder, and if you got a big profit cushion in either ESNT or NMIH, you could maybe sort of sit and wait and see whether there's support at the 40-week line, just like what Chris was talking about. Some stocks will get that support at the 40-week line. But if you're a recent buyer, I think it makes sense to cut losses and move on, or take your small gain.
Okay, so let's do a wrap up on, first let's check in on the market. Let's see how things are looking.
Cooled off a little bit, but there's not much volume, guys. I think the NASDAQ volume is down a little bit, even though the NASDAQ's gain has shrunk a little bit, and the NYSE volume is also very low. So I think we're waiting for Trump's.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
It's like waiting for a Fed announcement at this point.
Yeah,
and then we'll see where we go. And a couple of people asked me about my hedge. I was, I removed some of it yesterday and then added more at the close and added more before the open, just because it seemed like a good time. So I guess overall, I'm trying to kind of have like a quarter to a half hedge right now and ease back from the market. But it's definitely, it helps me sleep better.
This is what I would say. I don't have a hedge. And last night when the futures were down, I was kicking myself. So if you do want to have a hedge, if that's something, some people just want to raise cash. That's the way Bill never hedged. He just raised cash or be in. So either put yourself back to how you were feeling last night when the news came out, and just say, did you get carried away with some stocks? And if so, back away from them, even though things look great right now. We don't know how it's going to play out. If you want to hedge, put it on now while we're at highs.
Yeah, exactly.
We're pretty much at all-time highs right now. If you want to hedge now, because we don't know how this is going to play out. But I'm not hedged at the moment.
The hedge works when you're chasing it. Then that's where you get into trouble, where you put it right at the bottom of the market, and then it rallies up, and now you're all turned around. So it's more tactical. And
I might do a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so we and remind me if I'm forgetting any stocks that we talked about that were actionable. So we had looked at Toll. We like that one. And
solid, man.
Back a little bit.
There was a mention of Halozyme earlier because of that Goldman Sachs upgrade or something. I'm not sure if that was at a buy point or not. But the Vertex we mentioned a lot today.
Right. Vertex is
Shreve special, real nice support at the 10-week line. Can't overemphasize that.
If I can get the. It's
Ken,
nice
you're
that
not wearing your jacket
can
today.
speak for Ken all the time.
A little bit warmer today.
It's always nice to see those conviction bounces, for sure.
And what's nice is, whereas we're looking at some other stocks have pulled back from their highs, this is still right at the high. So it's showing some strength. It's got okay volume. Nothing wrong with that. In the same vein, we spent quite a bit of time on Dexcom, and that too is still looking pretty good. And then also Pod, which you could start nibbling at it here and wait for the breakout. And I would really, I guess, I don't think I added. I've had this for a while, and I don't think I added shares yesterday on it. And one of the things is I really want to wait until it gets up and see how that RS line looks at the flat base breakout.
I think this is more of the trading the theme than this chart looking perfect.
And then another one, we checked in on IPHI. Infi.
Still okay.
Yeah, nothing wrong there.
Yep. And NVIDIA was also a lot of discussion there.
Right. Solar Edge is now it's a little extended, so you might have to you got to wait on this one.
Yeah.
NVIDIA, it's got that 3 weeks tight, looking good.
Yeah.
And again, if you want to, great place to add. Also,
I like how it looks like a handle on this giant cup base, guys. I mean,
really, Ed was talking about that. Yes.
I mean, it's because it was such a deep decline, right? Everyone 50% plus drop after a monster move from that March 2016 breakout. That was around, I don't know, 28, 30 a share, and then it just needed a big washout, and the washout has happened. But clearly, it seems like greed is coming back into the market for this one.
We like that. And then the another one we touched on was Progeny, which could be actionable. You can start nibbling on it here. Again,
be careful, guys.
Anticipation. Yeah. And again, what I would look, if you look right here, it's got a 50-day. So if you got a 50-day, that means you're going to get a 10-week. And sure enough, right there. So again, another strategy is size your position off the 10-week and just decide how much you want to risk. Now it's almost 14% above the 10-week, so you're not going to get a big position. And maybe if you're doing a 1%, I wouldn't do a 1% position, but maybe a 0.5%. And again, it's just going to be small. So
yeah.
Any other stocks we need to?
We did the one that the lightning bolt was going to hit me.
Oh, right.
Maker of the Rebel Burger. The Rebel Burger.
Can you say that in Spanish?
It was Rebel Burger on the Spanish signs.
Well,
the posters.
It's reversed and at the low of the day, but still holding up. Although, boy,
but that volume is horrible because I have volume higher. If at this rate, it's going to be higher than yesterday.
Oh yeah.
So these are the shorts going in. Look, if you're short this stock, you are using all of your ammo here.
Right.
If I'm short. I'm going. You know what? If I don't spend my bullets here, this thing is rocketing out. Now they might win out on me, shorts are dirty people. No, dirty short. Okay, no, shorts are great people. We love them.
And Luckin Coffee again has reversed higher stock up about 6%. Impressive.
I love shorts when they have to cover after a breakout, right?
What? Shorts are actually some of the smartest people. I think Andrew Left of Citron. When you hear him explain something, you could completely disagree with him, but the people that seriously do shorting, they are some of the most intelligent people in the business. So I was just messing around.
Okay. Well, we're well over our time limit. Thanks everyone for sticking with us. We got to a lot of questions. There's a lot of things I'd like to jump on tomorrow as well. Some about how we prepare over the weekend and things like that. So, but with all these stocks moving, it's tough to digress. Yeah, I know. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll be getting the questions to you, the watch list, the ready list as well. And again, always we're available, the rest of the trading day via Twitter. You can reach out to us directly. Mike is.
I've been known to tweet
0 to 3,000, more than 3.
No. I had 40. I don't know why I had 40, but I had 40.
So Mike went from 40 followers to more than 3,000 in what?
Woohoo! Because you asked me to.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing, Mike. You've been doing a great job. Please follow him at M Webster 1971. Is this still that?
Yeah. And follow you on both of your handles.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. And we will see you tomorrow.